Hi everyone, it's Niamh here and welcome to my art journaling channel. Today we're going to be looking at mark making and knowing when to stop, which I'm not very good at. So I'm starting out in my craft journal and doing what I tend to do and put splodges of colour down, doing in my threes to create those visual triangles. So because I'm working on craft, you can see my colours aren't necessarily true because they've obviously got those brownish undertones. If you really want to have really nice bright colours, put a layer of white gesso underneath. But it really doesn't matter because I knew I was going to be doing lots of mark making over the top of this. So this is just to get something in the background. You can see I'm mostly trying not to mix the colours, but obviously I'm still working a little bit wet and wet. So there is some blending happening, which isn't necessarily an issue. But if you wanted to stop the blending from happening, you'd just have to dry between layers. So one of my favourite mark making or ways to do mark making is just grab lots of different paint brushes, and some of the best brushes I found are going to the kids shop, or reject shop, cheap $2 shop, and buying kids brushes, because you don't mind if you use and abuse them. And I used to have lots of fun when my daughter was little, grabbing her brushes and just making all sort of random marks and swirling the brushes around on the page and so on. So you can have lots of fun with those. So you can see I used a flat brush to begin with, and I'm using a thinner brush to make little dots, using the metallics and drying off as I go along, just to make sure that everything's sort of not going to mix and I'm layering rather than blending. The other thing I like to do is to repeat colours. So obviously I used the yellow in the background, but now I'm going in and using it again as some of my mark making over top. I'm also just brushing over where I had it before, because yellow does tend to be a slightly transparent colour. So I was just boosting that by giving it a second go. And I'm going in with one of my favourite marks. This is cross shape, all random shapes and sizes all mixed up together in a fuchsia colour. So again, the colours I'm using are the ones that are on the page. They may be slightly different shades, but I've got blues on the page in both the background and the mark making. I've got pinky reds on the page in the foreground and the background. So I've got a lot of repetition. Same with doing it in 3 spots around the page. That just sort of gives you repetition of pattern and design as you go along. This is just using a thick white paint marker. So I know some people have been asking about it. It's the PC7M in bullet point, and it's a really handy size. I love it for making that dot making. I'm going in with a stencil, just adding a little bit of stenciling. Again, using colours I've used in the foreground and the background. And just like the crosses I drew on my page itself, I love this stencil because it's got that variety. Now, when I'm stenciling, this is very light stenciling, so it really is in the background. It's not sort of in your face, it's just something else on the page. And again, similar shapes, so I'm repeating shapes. But to draw it out from the background, I am going around with my white pen and drawing around the outside. Now, I'm not being super careful with doing this. I'm just sort of making the shapes come out from the background a little bit, and putting a little bit more white space onto my page, I suppose. So it helps to define your stenciled images. It sometimes helps to cover up bits that haven't necessarily stenciled all the best on your page as well. It's best to be, I have found, there's no right or wrong, but I find if I'm a bit rough and ready with how I do it and the lines are a little bit wobbly, works a lot better than trying to be very precise and then having one wobble, because that will really stand out in your page. So if it's all wobbly, you can go, but that's the way it's supposed to be. So that's my little tip and trick. So you can see now I've got that little stenciling around. If you're really concerned about it and you don't want to do it freehand, not that I really am because I'm tracing around the outside of it, put the stencil back down again and use that to help you. Now I'm going back in with some purple over the top and making some circles. So as I said at the beginning of this is about knowing when to stop, and I stop when I stop having fun, when it starts being a little bit of a chore of, oh, what do I have to do next? So if I'm in the flow and I'm still going, it's all fine, but I tend to stop when I get a bit frustrated with it. Sometimes you've got a really natural stopping point, sometimes you don't. I personally like crowded, busy pages, as you can see from the 2 pages in front of you. Some people like much cleaner, more white space and so on their pages. So it really is what you like and what you fancy. If you're starting to get a little bit, have I got enough on this or I'm not sure, 2 really useful tricks I've learnt is either to step away from it for a while, even if it's 15 minutes, go have a drink, come back and have a look at it, or prop whatever you're looking at, your piece of art, and go and stand about 1.5 meters away from it. So pretend you're in an art gallery looking at a piece of art, and that will tend to give you a bit of an idea of, does it look balanced? Is it in the right place? Is there any bits that don't look quite right? Are there any bits that I need to add to? So if you give yourself that little bit of space, it really, really helps. By being so close when you're working at it, sometimes it's hard to take all that other stuff into account. So this is a close-up of the finished piece. I happened to find this the end in a magazine which I cut out, and I thought it was perfect because not only was it the end of the mark making, it was the end of my journal, so it was a really nice bookend to finish off my craft journal. So I hope you have a go at mark making. Let me know below when you know when to stop on a piece of work, and until next time, bye for now.